The Lord created man in a mysterious way, breathed life, breathed a soul into his being, but did not leave him alone. We do have companionship with lower beings. We think of the relationship that we can have with our pet, especially those of a higher order. But it is not enough. And the Lord God Almighty, created the perfect partner, the completeness that only marriage can offer. Bone of my bones. Now this then is the order of things, and from the beginning one sees the natural orientation of one person to one other person. In the early period we see polygamy there, especially in patriarchs and kings, but we see with the law given to Moses that the Lord is orientating towards monogamy. In that wider context, we see how this element of allowing men to declare a situation of divorce is a limiting of certain risks, but it is not enough. It places the woman in a very precarious situation. She is unable to have that same right. And when, therefore, the Pharisees come to the Lord, it is in that understanding that there is the possibility of having a divorce. And when, therefore, the Lord indicates the true project of the Creator and its consequences, they are quite surprised. But he does not step down, he does not back off. He does insist, and he goes into this term adultery for those who contract another union. He is also thereby protecting the woman, because then the man is in a situation of adultery if he does that. Now, that also on the level of nature makes perfect sense. We are not made to share our deepest being with more than one, normally. It can't be done. And even in nature one sees it. The puffins on Skellig Michael, after they have grown to maturity, select one partner. They make a home, a physical home on the island. They go away in the winter, but they come back, they find the same home and the same partner. And that will repeat itself for about 24 years, indicating unto man what is the natural order of things. We can't share our intimacy more than once, normally. And so, grace and nature are intertwined in the divine project and in the functioning thereof. There is harmony. The word woman reflects the play on sounds in the Hebrew. Ishach is longer than ish. They've added the feminine ending onto man. And so in English, woman is an extension of man in the etymology. The Vulgate plays on the word vir, man, and virago, Virgo, woman. Welsh does something similar, gur and guraig. And so it would go in quite a few languages. The completeness of the person is often compared to two halves, and sometimes lovers refer to each other as my other half or my better half. And when there is a sudden death, they lose half of their being, and that is a good side of a bad pain. If it weren't the case, there would be a question mark. Now, the Lord, in answering the Pharisees, comes out with this crucial teaching that the permission given by Moses was a concession to what? Their sclerocardia. Scleros is the word that gives us sclerosis, a hardening of the arteries and so on. Sclerosis, and cardia, heart. So hardening of the heart. It was because of the hardening of your heart that this concession was made. The Vatican, for a long time, used this expression when, against the wish of its instinct, would concede a prescript of laicization to a priest who was making appeal. The last phrase would be ad duritiam cordis, for the hardness of his heart. That was the motive given, and it was on the rescript, that they were allowing the person to return to the lay state, that is, to not exercise his priesthood, even though, of course, he would always be a priest. So too, in this we have this concession, which was not of the positive will of God. The whole doctrine of matrimony in the Catholic sphere is based on this, that God is involved in this bonding once it is contracted validly in the sacramental sphere. The ministers are the spouse and his spouse. The two are the one who are actually saying yes and eventually contracting it fully by the consummation of the marriage itself. The two spouses are the ministers, and the church is the authentic witness in the person of the priest, the one who is authentically delegated by episcopal authority. It has to be controlled. If that weren't the case, it would be a question of eventual polygamy. There has to be, therefore, a registering of every union validly contracted. It happens on the baptismal form, therefore we can prove. Now, this then is the situation. We have the Lord's own teaching, what God has joined together, let not man put asunder. We can't do it. If it is there, it is there. And to multiply the union is to enter into an adulterous union a second or third time. The way in which it is handled in the East is slightly different from the way it's handled in the West. Theologians differ, but people tend to think that the permission that they have in the East to allow, out of mercy, a second union is, in fact, not sacramental, but a lenient way of not excluding them from the life of the Eastern Church. But the fact is that the theologians do say that it actually is probably not sacramental, but it cannot be. Therefore, what we are doing in the West is maintaining this element of respecting the order of things as they are. Because it has actually been pointed out fairly recently by Cardinal Müller when handling the East, that this is actually a doctrinal problem for the West, the fact that they do allow this, because it is illogical. And the advantage of the Western thought is that it is coherent. We are not in charge of theology. We are listening to the Theos, whose logos it is. God speaks and we listen. So we listen to the Lord when he says, what God has joined together, let not man put asunder. And this element of pulling on what is actually stemming from the hardness of the heart is our own thing. we're actually falling back into what Moses was doing. Now, we are in the Christian sphere on a higher level insofar as we have the incarnation and sacramental grace. Therefore, over this, we have no power. What is being discussed now is the question of how we handle marital situations which are perhaps flawed. In the West, we have developed the system of looking carefully into what constitutes valid sacramental marriage. And it has already been pointed out by the then Cardinal Ratzinger in the late 90s that the diminution of faith in the Western world, for instance, leads then to a question mark over the capacity of some to contract Catholic marriage in the Catholic sense with full Catholic awareness. Therefore, that would be an area to look into. But it's not the same as looking into the question of the theology of the sacrament itself. That is to say that either the marriage is or isn't. What one is looking into there is it or is it not? And therefore, that is the origin of the whole question that they're looking into right now with regard to nullity. Because if that is the case, that some apparent marriages, we call them putative unions, are not actually sacramentally binding because there was a bit missing on the level of the consent, remembering that the ministers are the spouse and spouse themselves, then the question poses itself, what does one do to unravel the consequences? And for instance, at a later stage in the person's life, there may be more maturity and more faith, and they want to live that faith in the fullness of the life of the church. Well, then the question poses itself in a different way, and that's what they're looking into right now. Could there be a way of helping these without changing the theology of the sacrament itself? E.g., does it have to be very complicated and even expensive each time? Because that in practice is often the problem on grassroots level. So if the bishop is looked to as a point of important authority and decision, rather than each time automatically the rota in Rome, then that could actually be a way of living out concretely the fullness of the theology, but handling it also in a way which limits the damage of our fallen state. Sacramenta propter homines, the sacraments are for men. That is to say, the Lord is giving us medicine, and all the sacraments are for our salvation. In that wider context, the Church needs now to pray for the mind of Christ, that the voice of Christ be heard, but that we also hear his desire to save all mankind.